A new truck sits on a dealer lot for an average of 90 days before it sells. Some lots right now pass 200 days. That's not a slow season, that's an industry holding its breath. Here's the part that should scare you. The $80,000 truck on that lot won't be worth $40,000 in 3 years. The engine bolted under the hood has a real chance of failing before 60,000 miles. And the people who actually need a truck for work have already quietly exited this market. I've spent over 20 years with my hands inside these engines, and I'm telling you, 2026 is the year this entire system cracked open. Stick with me, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly which trucks are quietly falling apart, which engines have owners posting the same horror story over and over, why repair and insurance costs are climbing faster than wages, and why the math on a brand new pickup no longer makes sense for anyone. The $20,000 question nobody's asking, let's open with the number that started all of this. In 2018, a fully loaded F-150 Lariat sold for roughly $48,000. Today, that same trim is sitting at $68,000. $20,000 added on the exact same truck, built on the exact same line, by the exact same workers. What did that money actually buy you? A larger infotainment screen, a heated steering wheel, a few software features most owners never touch. The frame is unchanged. The bed is unchanged, and in one of the more insulting moves in recent memory, the engine block was quietly switched from cast iron to aluminum, a cheaper material. While the price went up, and it's everywhere, not just Ford. The Ram 1500 Limited now lists around $88,000. The Chevy Silverado High Country sits near $79,000. The GMC Sierra Denali Ultimate has crossed $92,000. These numbers used to describe luxury sedans, not pickup trucks. According to Cox Automotive, the average new truck transaction in America has climbed to roughly $58,000, with monthly payments now averaging over $1,080. Loan terms have stretched to 72 months as standard, with 84-month terms becoming common at some banks. 7 years of payments on a vehicle that realistically won't survive that long without major repair work. You're not purchasing a truck anymore. You're signing up for a 7-year depreciation schedule at 7% interest. It's also worth noting that incentives haven't kept pace with sticker prices the way they used to. A decade ago, manufacturers leaned heavily on rebates and low APR financing to soften the blow of a price increase. Today, with parts and material costs rising industry-wide, many of those traditional cushions have shrunk, meaning more of that $20,000 jump lands directly on the buyer, with fewer ways to offset it at the negotiating table than there used to be. The trap hiding inside your loan. Here's a number that should keep you up at night. A brand new F-150 loses roughly 30% of its value in the first 12 months alone. On an $80,000 truck, that's $24,000 gone, while you're still sitting on payment 12 of 72. Fast forward 3 years, that same truck might fetch $42,000 on a trade-in, but your loan balance? Still around $65,000. That $23,000 gap is what lenders call negative equity. I call it being handcuffed to your own driveway, because the moment you want out, you have to write a check just to walk away. A buyer in Ohio shared his numbers with me last month, financed a loaded Silverado in 2023 for $76,000, and 2 years later, his trade-in offer came back at $39,000 against a remaining balance of $58,000. That's a $19,000 hole on a truck with barely 30,000 miles on it. He's not unusual. He's the new normal. He told me the dealer's own appraiser admitted off the record that they're seeing the exact same gap on nearly every trade-in that rolls through regardless of brand. Meanwhile, the buyers who actually use their trucks for work, hauling lumber on weekdays, towing equipment on weekends, have largely exited this market entirely. They're not financing $80,000 trucks. They're buying 10-year-old trucks with 6 figures on the odometer in cash and walking away from the entire game. The hidden costs nobody mentions at the dealership. There's another number the finance office never brings up. Insurance. As trucks have gotten more expensive, loaded with sensors, cameras, and complex electronics, insuring them has gotten dramatically more expensive too. Industry data shows full coverage premiums on new pickups have climbed by double digits year over year, with some high-trim trucks now costing more to insure annually than some entire used vehicles cost to buy outright. Then there's parts. A windshield on a modern truck isn't just glass anymore. It's a sensor array for lane keeping and adaptive cruise, and replacing it can run into the thousands once calibration is factored in. A rear bumper with parking sensors and a trailer camera built in isn't a $300 part, it's closer to $1,800 installed. A Michigan truck owner shared his renewal notice from earlier this year. His premium on a 2023 Ram 1500 jumped from $1,640 to $2,210 annually, with no accidents, no tickets, nothing on his record. The insurer's explanation was simple. Repair costs on his specific trim had risen sharply industry-wide, and his rate followed. So even before you factor in fuel, maintenance, or the loan itself, owning one of these trucks now comes with a second monthly bill that's growing faster than almost anything else in your budget. It's death by 1,000 line items, and most buyers don't see it coming until the first renewal notice lands. Ford's 3.5-liter EcoBoost, the cold start rattle. Let's get into the engines, because this is where the real damage is happening, and where the data backs up everything I've seen on the lift. Start with Ford's 3.5-liter EcoBoost, found in millions of F-150s on the road. The issue centers on the cam phasers, which wear out and cause a distinct rattling noise on cold starts. Owners describe it as sounding like loose change in a metal can. Ford has issued service bulletins acknowledging the noise, often pointing to oil viscosity as the cause, but mechanics who've torn these engines down repeatedly point to a design and tolerance issue that oil alone can't fix. A Texas-based F-150 owner posted his repair invoice online last year: 74,000 miles, original owner, routine oil changes, and a $4,300 bill for cam phaser and timing chain replacement. He wasn't towing heavy loads, he wasn't off-roading, it was a daily commuter that started rattling on cold mornings, and by the time he got it into a shop, the damage had already spread to the timing components. That's the pattern. By 80,000 miles, EcoBoost owners are routinely staring down repair bills in the $4,000 plus range on an engine that was marketed as a fuel-efficient, high-tech replacement for a V8. Forum threads dedicated to this exact symptom now run into the hundreds of pages, with new owners posting nearly identical videos of the same cold start rattle, often within the same 60,000 to 80,000 mile window. If you're finding this useful, and especially if you're shopping for a truck right now, hit subscribe before we keep going. This channel exists to cover exactly the stuff dealerships hope you never look up. Alright, let's keep digging. GM's 6.2-liter L87, the engine found in the Silverado, Sierra, and Escalade lineups. This isn't a small issue. General Motors recalled nearly 600,000 of these engines, which tells you the scale of the problem before we even get into specifics. The failure points are the lifters, the crankshaft, and the connecting rod bearings, all of which have been documented failing well before the warranty period ends. GM's official remedy involves switching to a thicker oil specification on a truck that can cost upward of $80,000. Use thicker oil is not a confidence-inspiring fix. A Colorado Silverado owner documented his experience step by step. At 46,000 miles, his truck began ticking on startup. Within 2 weeks, it progressed to a knock. The dealership initially blamed his oil change schedule, despite full service records, before eventually agreeing to replace the engine under recall. Total time without his truck, 5 weeks. Total miles before failure, less than half the powertrain warranty period. Multiply that story by 600,000 vehicles, and you start to understand why GM is sitting on this many unsold trucks. General Motors is facing scrutiny over its 6.2-liter L87 V8 engines, which power top-tier trucks and SUVs due to widespread reports of catastrophic failures, including seized lifters and snapped crankshafts. These issues often result in complete engine replacements, forcing owners to deal with significant repair delays and potential out-of-pocket costs exceeding $10,000 once warranties expire. The Stellantis Hurricane 6, beta testing at $80,000. Now here's one that's still unfolding in real time. The Stellantis Hurricane Straight 6 was introduced as the replacement for the legendary Hemi Diff 8, a brand new architecture, twin turbocharged, marketed as more efficient and more powerful. The problem? It's brand new. Early owners are already reporting oil leaks, and powertrain complaint threads are growing across Ram forums. There simply isn't enough mileage on these engines yet to know how they'll hold up long term, which means every every early buyer is, functionally, part of an unpaid test fleet. One owner in Tennessee took delivery of a 2024 Ram with the Hurricane engine and reported an oil leak at the rear main seal area at just 8,200 miles. Well within the warranty, but enough to keep his truck in the shop for over 3 weeks waiting on parts. He described it on a forum as driving a science experiment with a monthly payment attached. If you bought one of these, you paid full price, often north of $80,000, to help the manufacturer figure out what breaks first. Toyota's twin-turbo V6. Even the Unbreakable brand slipped. This next one stings more than the others because it involves a brand that built its entire identity on bulletproof reliability. Toyota's new twin-turbo V6, the iForce Max, has been failing at surprisingly low mileage due to contamination introduced during the casting process. Toyota issued a recall covering more than 100,000 of these engines. Here's where it gets worse. Owners who already received a replacement engine under that recall are now reporting the same symptoms returning. The same ticking, the same metal debris in the oil, the same failure pattern. That's not a fixed problem, that's a second wave, and as of now, Toyota hasn't publicly addressed it. A Tundra owner in Arizona received a full engine replacement in late 2024 after his original failed at just 12,000 miles. By mid-2025, his replacement engine was showing the exact same metal shavings on an oil analysis test. He's now on his second open case with Toyota Corporate, on a truck that's barely 2 years old, when the brand known for engines that run for 300,000 miles starts producing engines that don't make it past 15,000. That's not a quality control hiccup, that's a structural problem. The reliable Hemi isn't immune either. Here's one that catches people off guard, because the 5.7-liter Hemi 5.8 has spent 2 decades building a reputation as one of the toughest engines on the road. But the version paired with the e-Torque mild hybrid system, used widely in ROM 1500s from the last several model years, has developed its own well-documented weak spot, the exhaust manifold bolts. These bolts back out and snap due to heat cycling, which lets the manifold separate slightly from the cylinder head. The result is a distinct ticking or popping sound under acceleration that mechanics hear constantly. On its own, it's not catastrophic, but it's expensive and time-consuming to fix properly, often requiring the cab to be lifted off the frame to access the rear bank bolts. A Pennsylvania Ram 1500 owner described taking his truck in for what he assumed was a $200 fix, only to be quoted $2,800 once the shop explained that a proper repair meant a cab-off procedure to reach all 8 bolts safely. He'd heard the ticking for nearly a year and assumed it was just a Hemi thing. A phrase that gets repeated so often in Ram forums that owners now treat a known failure as a personality trait of the engine. It's a smaller bill than a full engine replacement, sure, but it's a perfect example of how even the engines with genuinely strong long-term reputations are getting nickel and dimed by design shortcuts elsewhere in the truck. Lots full discounts. Deepening, so here's where all of this lands. Trucks cost more than ever. Engines are failing earlier than ever, and depreciation is wiping out value faster than buyers can keep up. The result? Dealers can't move inventory. Industry-wide, dealer lots are sitting on more than 115 days worth of unsold trucks. Normal is closer to 60 days. Every day a truck sits unsold, the dealer pays interest on it through what's called floor plan financing, and that cost adds up fast, so the discounts have started rolling in. $12,000 off MSRP, $15,000 off, one Sierra HD was spotted last week, marked down $22,000 from a dealership that 2 years earlier had buyers on waiting lists. The manufacturers are reacting too. Ford has cut F-150 production at multiple plants. GM idled shifts at its Flint assembly facility. Ram has rolled out employee pricing to the general public. These companies built a wall of inventory for a customer base that's no longer showing up. It's worth pausing on what that actually means for the next buyer. A glut this large doesn't resolve itself in a month. It takes quarters, sometimes years, to work through, which means the trucks rolling off these production lines right now are heading straight into a market that's already saturated, pushing incentives even higher and resale values for current owners even lower. If you bought 18 months ago expecting your truck to hold value while the market tightens, the opposite is happening. The flood of incentives on new trucks drags down what every used version of that truck is worth too. The repo wave nobody's talking about. Here's the part of this story that's quietly getting worse every month. Vehicle repossessions are climbing year over year, and Manheim's wholesale auction data shows used pickup lanes filling with late model trucks at a pace not seen in over a decade. Translate that into plain English. Thousands of people bought trucks they couldn't actually afford. Dealers approved the sales anyway. Banks approved the loans anyway. And now those same trucks are showing up at auction selling for roughly half of what's still owed on them. A loss that gets absorbed by the lender, then passed back into the system as tighter lending standards for everyone else. What's striking is how new some of these repossessed trucks are. Auction lots that used to be dominated by 8 to 10-year-old trade-ins are now seeing trucks with 20,000 or 30,000 miles. Vehicles barely a year old repossessed because the monthly payment finally became unsustainable. That's not a sign of a few unlucky buyers. That's a sign the entire pricing structure outran what regular incomes can support. If you financed a truck in the last 2 years, here's the uncomfortable math. Your truck is probably worth less than your loan balance. Your engine may be on borrowed time, and your factory warranty runs out right around the 60,000 mile mark, which, as we just covered, is exactly when these failures tend to show up. The buyers who already got out. While all of this has been unfolding, a quieter group of buyers figured out the math years ago, and they're doing just fine. A contractor I know personally tracked down a 2018 Toyota Tundra with just over 200,000 miles on it, paid $22,000 in cash, and has put another 40,000 miles on it since, with nothing more than oil changes, brakes, and tires. No payment, no warranty clock ticking down, no depreciation cliff waiting for him. That's the pattern across the working truck crowd right now. They're not financing $80,000 trucks with engines that haven't proven themselves. They're buying proven platforms. Engines with a decade of real-world mileage behind them for a fraction of the price, and sleeping easier because of it. Another example, a landscaping crew in Georgia runs a fleet of 3 2014 to 2016 Silverados with the older, naturally aspirated 5.3-liter V8. An engine with over a decade of real-world data behind it and none of the issues we covered today. Combined, those 3 trucks cost less than one new Sierra Denali Ultimate, and the owner told me his total repair spend across all 3 over the last 2 years was under $3,000. Compare that to a single $4,300 cam phaser job on one EcoBoost, and the math isn't close. Here's the bottom line. Truck prices have nearly doubled in less than a decade. Several of the most common engines on the road are failing well before 100,000 miles. Depreciation is erasing tens of thousands of dollars within the first 3 years. Insurance and parts costs are climbing faster than almost any other line item in a household budget. And dealer lots are packed with trucks nobody's lining up for anymore. None of this happened by accident. Every piece of it, the price increases, the cost cutting on engine components, the longer loan terms designed to mask the real monthly cost, was a deliberate choice made by people who understood the math better than the buyers signing on the dotted line. If you're shopping right now, there's no rush. Walk away, and the discount that wasn't on the table last year will be there next quarter. If you already own one of these trucks, knowing what's coming is the first step to planning around it. Get ahead of the maintenance schedule, document everything for warranty claims, and start thinking now about your exit timeline before the warranty clock runs out on you. So tell me in the comments. Which engine are you driving, and has it given you any of these symptoms yet? I read every single comment, and they shape exactly which truck or engine I dig into next. If this video opened your eyes a little, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because next time, we're covering exactly which used trucks are still safe to buy in this market, with the specific model years and mileage ranges to target. That one video alone could save you tens of thousands of dollars, and you won't want to miss it.